Alright, it's time to get stiffer with Stifflers. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, we're going to put this Stifflers transmission mount for the MT82. First thing we're going to do is remove the existing mount on the transmission. I actually kind of have this set up the way that it should be, but I'll explain that as time goes on. One thing right off the bat that I noticed is that the kit does not come with the bolts in order to mount this onto the transmission. Obviously this factory one will not work, it's way too long. I just happen to already have the hardware here. 1.75, 12, there's your size for this. And then these ones in particular are 35 mils long. It's just what I had here. Gone to Broward Bolt quite a few times for hardware, so shout out to them. Not a sponsor, but just a good shop. Anyways, I'm gonna just start out myself by mounting this up. Had to do this off camera. I think I've explained this enough. Not a lot of room down here. Pretty much the way that I had this is I temporarily mounted this up in place, just being loosely held on, and then had this one bolt going in this direction in order just to keep this in place. You're supposed to have it up touching the bottom of the car, and then with the magnet there, I was able to keep it in place while I snuck the whole cross member out, and then use my center punch for those, and then now I can drill straight through and mount it up. It's a 3/8 inch drill bit that you want to go straight through, or as straight as possible, through the frame rail there. Not gonna lie, got a little carried away. But basically, once I got the holes for this one set up, I just did the same thing on this side, and then mount this up, put the bushings in, all that jazz. It's really not too hard. Mine has a little bit of an awkward fit, but you know, as we learned with like my Stifflers subframe connectors, it's probably just the body of the car. Regardless, it's installed, looks pretty dang good. Move on to the next thing. I went ahead and I took a bunch of the seam sealer out from around here and started welding it. The reason that we're doing this is because we have the coilover set up. So I'm gonna end up doing the same thing over here on the driver's side next, but I do have to get new wire because I keep having it like arc back into the machine. I think it's just this wire I got is not good at the end. So that's a part of why these welds look so ugly. Plus I'm not able to get all of the seam sealer out, which causes it to have contaminants and all that crap. But you know, this isn't a show car, nor is this really supposed to be seen. I'm not gonna be doing in there yet. Maybe one day when I end up taking these guys off, I'll make that a point. But I just don't really have great access to it, and I don't feel like messing up my coilover setup. I'll probably record me doing this other side, just do a time lapse on it, but the end result should look something like that. Due to time restraints, I didn't get to record that. I came here for other things, but regardless, both sides now are welded up. I just threw a quick thing of primer on there just so that the welds don't rust, and we'll call it good. But this side, well, you know, definitely backyard mechanic. Definitely looks better than the passenger side here. Most of that was, like I explained before, I believe the wire that I had was going bad. So got new wire, new gas, argon gas, and then I think that looks better. It has been a while, to say the least. Last time we were here, we did these guys, we got those welded up. And then now what I'm gonna do is I guess start doing the fuel system. One thing I did do is I grabbed a new fuel tank cover, new to me, fuel tank cover. This one's in better shape, mainly because I don't know how well you can see it. That has a burn mark. It's really common on the V8 model Mustangs or Foxbodies. But my buddy Matt had one of these, Matt Heimer, Horseplay Auto, Jupiter, Florida, good guy. If you need something, check him out. He had one of these sitting around with no burn marks. It did have some paint on it. You can see some of the residue right there. I did take a bunch of it off. I use a Scotch-Brite pad over there with some of this hand cleaner because it has like the little bit of sandy grittiness in it. And then I also used a little bit of steel wool on it. I am going to end up painting this and probably sanding down that last little bit. I'll show that later, but it used to look a lot more like that one. Now, what I'm going to do is I guess get the fuel tank in the car, and we can use this one to kind of more or less mock everything up and like get the pump in and get the tank ready to be dropped in the car. That way I can have it on the floor on something that I'm not worried about getting scratched up. And then once we're ready to actually mount it in the car, this one will be ready. A couple things that I'm doing before we get into the actual fuel hat and the fuel system is I got new gaskets for the filler neck here and for this expansion valve. So just gonna be throwing these guys on. And I also got new, it's like padding. I got new padding for the top of the fuel tank that goes in between the top here and the bottom of the car, just to make sure that, you know, doesn't eat through this metal over time or spark or anything like that. So gonna just be throwing these in too. So with this being the 03 style tank, stealth tank, it does fit, but it doesn't fit exactly the same as far as like where these padding should go. So I just did a quick little cut on a bunch of the little pieces and put it where I think it's going to be needed. If, for instance, like this spot turns out to be a little too high, I can just end up peeling it back off, but I'll figure that out. I also got this little valve put in. Just make sure that you put the rubber gasket on the tank first and then push this in. Otherwise, you're never going to get it in there. Same thing with this. You want to do the gasket and then you put the actual fuel filler neck on here. So I was missing a couple things, one of which was this gasket, and obviously I needed it. I don't know why this hat doesn't come with it, but regardless, I was able to find it local. There's the part number from Ford, and it should be the right one. The only issue might be is that it's too thick. I don't know, but we'll figure that out. The other thing that I was missing was a fuel level sensor. You use the stock one from like an 87 and up Mustang, even though it says 86. I'm pretty sure that one's different than this. And then you just kind of break it off of the factory tab here. Now, if you have a stock tank, then you don't need to buy a new one. But I clearly don't have a stock tank because I threw that crap away or sold it. Either way, goes into these little spots and then you start putting it together. The part number for the sending unit that I used is this guy right here. So yeah. So one thing that I have picked up is this is obviously a fuel level sensor mount for it, but I don't know what part number is supposed to be used for this exact one, if it even actually will work inside of this tank that I have. I need to ground this out, so I'm going to remove this ground wire here that they already have, or at least I'm pretty sure it's a ground. Regardless, I need that to go onto here, and then this wire right here should get attached to this. If I'm understanding it right, that should be all that I need, and then I should be actually ready to drop this into the tank once I have these all properly connected. So everything's pretty much ready to go in, but I just want to show you how this bracket lines up. Basically, you're going to drop it in this way. So you can kind of see you got like this piece here is supposed to be roughly flush right about there, and then it just gets the clips on. I don't have a good way of recording it, but I'm gonna hook everything up, all the wires and everything, and then just get it set in place as well as the fuel hat. Got all that set in place, got this guy screwed down. Now we're ready to move on to getting like this fitting in, the return line, just at least started, whatever. Now we're ready to run hoses along the car. We gotta get the filter mounted up and all that. Depending on how much time I'm here tomorrow, maybe this will be the end of the video and you'll see a part 2 for all that stuff, or you know, you'll see that next. So I guess we'll see how we cut it. But if we do cut it here, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I didn't just make a bomb. I don't think I did, but you know, I don't know what I'm doing. Regardless, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. For the so went ahead and took a bunch of this sound deadener.